Call to order. First, Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, got ahead of myself. I should have mentioned the Torch Lake Township Planning Commission regular meeting Monday, October 2025, 7 p.m. And we have taken the roll. We have one absence, so we have a quorum. Consideration of the agenda. Any comments, concerns? Can we adopt by consent? Hearing none, the agenda is adopted. Any conflicts of interest, members of the commission? Hearing none. Minutes from the regular meeting, August 18 of 2025.
I only have one thing. I wasn't sure under 11. And I could have gone back to the recording, but Bob Cook, what did he say? Discusses was to get the notice to the township residents and encourages a second meeting.
That was related to the survey.
Okay.
I mean, I don't even know, I mean, you can just say, you made mention of the survey, but it was a comment about it.
So we'll have a clarification there. But I remember him speaking, so.
Cool.
Yeah, okay. So with a clarification on second item of number 11, can we adopt the minutes?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes, subject to modification of the second item under section 11.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Adopted. Now we will open the floor to public comment on agenda items other than any public hearings, which we don't have scheduled this evening. So, public,
Wendy
Nope.
McWhorter?
thank you.
Hello, my name is Wendy McWhorter, and I live in Torch Lake Township. I'm coming here to talk to you today about the Torch Bay Nature Preserve on Lake Michigan. According to the Parks and Rec survey results, Torch Bay Nature Preserve emerges as one of the most popular for usage. I walk this beach every day with my dog, as this is the closest long beach access near me as a Torch Lake Township resident. This spring and summer, the beauty of that beach was tarnished. Each day I picked up discarded trash, diapers, toys, food wrappers, beer, pop, water containers, clothing, you name it, humans leave it. As an environmentally conscious person, I cannot leave the trash. Is this my responsibility? Yes and no. You can bet I do not leave behind anything but my footprints, and I pick up after my dog. Foremost, my responsibility is to bring this issue to your attention as the planning board. I have sent several emails to Mr. Cook and felt after reading the survey results that I needed to speak to you directly about solutions and actions. First, I want to remind you all about the language in the Torch Bay Nature Preserve Conservation Easement, written in 1998. Under the heading of prohibitive actions, number H, the accumulation of waste or unsightly or offensive materials. Torch Lake Township agreed to this legal obligation to uphold the conservation easement. I acknowledge that there are 2 pit toilets. However, there are 0 trash, recycling receptacles, which I see as necessary to fulfill the legal requirements of the easement. There must be a fixed structure at the beachfront where the cement barriers are to encourage visitors to throw away trash and recycle. I also pick up 10 to 15 cigarette butts on the beach and parking lot most days. The parking lot seems to be the worst for the disposal of cigarettes. A receptacle which would encourage smokers to extinguish their cigarettes there would be good. Going back to the survey and the recommendations, I would like to stress to all of you and impress upon the Torch Lake Township Board the following. In your report and communications to them, as they ultimately approve all the spending for Parks and Rec. One of the key takeaways from the Beckett Rater survey was the township should preserve existing natural features and amenities, a top concern of community members. Goals: continue to provide maintenance and enhance parks and recreation and amenities for both residents and visitors. This is right out of the plan. I went online and read it. In ending, I encourage you to include in the action plan so it becomes a budget item for the 2025 budget and fulfills the legal requirements of the easement from 1998 the following. 1, install 1, preferably 2 trash recycling containers, such as the container that is in the Antrim Creek natural area north of here off Old State Highway. I sent a picture to Bob Cook of it, and I've got one for you too. 2, install a pole with a cigarette disposal container attached to. I've got a photo of that too. To empty the above mentioned. I talked to one of these workers this summer at the Torch Lake Day Park, where I take all the trash I collect and deposit. They were unfamiliar about the situation across the street, just as a FYI. 4, add to the organization chart Torch Bay Nature Preserve Committee, as the preserve is the largest piece of property managed by this township, 38 acres. The committee is listed on the website, but says description coming. So thank you for providing the time to talk to you about this important issue that is mandated by the conservation easement of 1998. Thank you.
Thank you. And Maureen, did you want to come out now?
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Maureen Lorenz. I'm 2715 Bay Harbor Club Lane, I'll say drive. And I agree with everything that you just said, Wendy.
Thank you.
Because I live next to the nature preserve or close enough and walk through it regularly, and I'm constantly picking up all summer long. It was, and a lot of it traveled down in front of our homes and stuff. We live just to the south of the nature preserve. But my real question was, if we have comments regarding the recreation plan, Parks and Recreation Plan, which I am so thankful that you went ahead and did. I think it's wonderful. If we have comments, who can we submit those to? One comment was the idea that the nature preserve wasn't listed as one of the committees on that organization sheet. I don't know if that was an oversight or maybe I misunderstand. And the other comment was very early on, it lists hunting, boating, and something else, all active recreation. I would make a case for including some passive recreation. I think that was on page 8, like hiking, just the name. Just because we don't all own boats, we don't all actively use the outdoor spaces. Some of us just like walking through them. So that was my comments for this evening. But basically, if I do have comments or groups have comments to respond, if we can be notified of the appropriate way to address that. Appreciate it, and thank you very much. That's it.
And I'll just make comment that any comments related to the Park and Rec plan or the master plan can go to the zoning admin email address. The Park and Rec plan will be in front of the township board at their November meeting. And so sooner than later, if you're looking to get those edits in before it goes out for public review, but there is a public review period and a public hearing afterwards. So there's still some time to get additional information in as well through the end of the year.
Have we received any correspondence?
I have nothing.
Moving on, unfinished business. Which brings us back around to Park and Recreation Plan.
Sure. So I've provided a brief memo in your packet about the plans. So this is a complete draft of the document. You've seen the first couple of chapters already when we were reviewing some of the master plan chapters. We added in the park inventory and then the community engagement. And we will need to talk about the action items in the plan. So just brief overview of the plan is this is a 5-year plan. We submit it to the state, so we're eligible for state grants and fundings. If there's interest in that, we do need to get it adopted and uploaded to the state by February 1st, if there's any interest in applying for grants by April 1st. So kind of moving forward, and I just briefly mentioned this, but the township board will be reviewing the document at their November meeting, hopefully then releasing it for a 30-day public review period. Following that public review period, there will be a public hearing. Unfortunately, the dates don't align to go from their regular meeting in November to their regular meeting in December for 30 days. And so I don't know if it'll happen at the July meeting or if there'll be a January meeting, or if there'll be a special meeting in between, so that there's the opportunity to have the public hearing and be able to adopt it and not wait till the last minute in case something comes up, just because we're getting into that crunch period. So for the public, there will be, like I said, that 30-day review period. You can send in comments and a formal public hearing. The public hearing will be at the township board level, not at the planning commission. So ideally tonight we'll be able to wrap this document up to send it to the township board. But if not, and you want to see a final document with the action plan in it or other items changed, we'd want to come back and probably do some sort of a special meeting for that review to get it done so we can get it at their November meeting, since their meeting is the day after your meeting. So and I guess I think probably the easiest way is kind of just start, or was there any comments kind of in the first chapter that you wanted to talk about, and then just kind of walk through in that way, anything that you saw.
Agreed. The first chapter being the community profile, right? These are
Correct. Yes.
the data and statistics regarding
Yeah. So we kind of snipped some of the parts that's in your master plan. So you've seen that in the master plan as well, but trying to narrow in a little bit on the items that are typically looked at for recreational activities.
I thought it was visually pleasing
Good.
and it was interesting.
Yeah, and we're always looking for pictures too. So if you have any pictures that are within the township, feel free to send them over, and we'll put them in the park and rec plan and the master plan. We'll need pictures for. So
Whose dog was that?
that is Scarlett. That is my dog. I've now made it a personal goal to put her in every plan that I do, and that's actually Torch Lake behind it. So it's legit. It's in the township. But
That was going to be my question.
Can we get the metadata on that?
I told Liz, I'm like, hey, try to sneak this in somewhere. And then I looked at it, I'm like, that's the biggest picture in the whole document. I'm like, this is like a sneak it in anywhere. But so chapter 2, administrative structure.
The budget and funding, maybe it was me, maybe I just don't get it, but
Oh, that number's not right. No,
Okay.
no.
and the year 2025.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah, some typos.
Thanks for catching that. There was different because of the timing of everything. Update for that. As far as the comment about the other committee for the Torch Bay, I'm not familiar with that committee. It's something I can ask Bob about to see if that actually does exist, or if because it's on our website, maybe it's not. I don't, because there's no description. I just have not heard of it. So unless somebody has some knowledge that I don't, I can ask Bob about it.
Right, I think the day park committee was formed out of the last recreation plan, right?
Right.
Well, we didn't have a recreation plan before, though, I don't think, did we?
We did.
Yes.
You did,
We
okay.
did, but I didn't think we did, but we found one.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
16, 16. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
Was it
yeah,
16?
11 to 16,
Yeah,
I
I'm
think.
sorry.
was
So
the-
it was an old one that had expired.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, because I remember hearing Bob Cook say that we didn't have one,
Yes.
which is why we needed to create one. So
Right.
yes, gotcha.
Right.
Any other comments on chapter 2? Okay, so chapter 3, the park inventory. So this is where we're documenting any properties that are within the township that we manage or control. In that, some of the road ends are mentioned. A lot of this information was pulled from that older park and rec plan to fill it in, kind of more notable road ends and items like that. Did add in the potential trailhead in one of the public facilities not owned by Torch Lake Township.
So one question within that. Seems like we do want to be careful not to sign up for actions on things that we don't control or can't drive if we don't have the authority to do so, or A, we don't own the property, or B, have control over it. I'm not suggesting we shouldn't pursue something. I think we should be cognizant of that, not to put a document out there that suggests, hey, we're going to do the following actions, because people are going to expect us to be able to deliver. And then we go forward and say, oh, well, can't do that because we don't have jurisdiction over it, or funding is one thing, jurisdiction and control and ability legally to take action is another.
Yeah, and I think that's completely valid. I think that in the action items, if you wanted to do something, so for instance, the Torch Bay Nature Preserve that's managed but not owned by the township, so we'd have to work with, the owner, the conservancy of that property, and then also similar for any of these projects, either these access sites or like Barnes Park, if we had some ideas for that, we'd want to say, work with, contact, or, collaborate with, because there is a different owner that's involved in that. But, or you can say support, support tar in grants for the trail or something like that.
And you're talking about action items, right, Andy? I mean, that,
Well, ultimately, yes, but like I'm looking at page, it's got the, like, facilities not owned by Torch Lake, and then the whole inventory itself. And I'm just looking at it and you're just thinking about, which ones do we focus on versus which ones do we not? And then just the thought occurred to me around, just not boxing ourselves in to put something out there where to try to push for something we don't have control over.
Right, agreed.
That's all.
facilitate or try to or encourage or whatever.
Yeah.
And we probably have the biggest opportunity with the trailhead at this point.
Yeah, and the township itself doesn't have control of a lot of facilities, so that's usually when we go on to expand into some county and other facilities that are in the area, in the plan. Your park and rec plan is not required to provide a list of facilities not owned by Torch Lake Township, in the end. But a lot of times they do, just because it's usually county or state, owned properties. Okay. Looking at the planning process, number 4 or chapter 4, this has survey questions that were in the whole survey with the master plan. We just pulled out the recreational questions to put into the rec plan, and the same thing with the open house questions. We just pulled out the open house responses to the recreational questions to put in here. We'll be talking about the whole survey and open house stuff next.
Right.
Suppose we could have done that first. In my mind, I was like, this is business we have to get done, and so I put it first.
Exactly. No, that's good. Yeah, it doesn't, it's not wasting time for sure.
Is there anything in this chapter that we need to discuss? Or anything that's not clear? Okay. Then moving on to chapter 5, the goals, objectives, action plans. So some of these we started again with that document, the plan that you had to kind of get our basis. We did add in some new items related, based on public input, best practices, different items like that. In this goals and objectives. And then the action plan, I've just kind of left blank at this point to try to get some input and feedback. Hopefully the township board can also provide that input and feedback as well.
The only feedback I had was, like it defines at the top goal, what a goal is, what an objective is, and what an action is. That made sense. And then down below, we had goals and objectives, but it's not clear which one is a goal versus which one is an objective. And it, going through the definition, it almost seems like you take your broader kind of, okay, this is what we're shooting for. And then the objective to me is almost like the strategy to get there. So it's like a very, it's more action oriented. It's more specific as you outline here. But it was, when I read through these, it seemed very, very general. And I realize that's part of the nature of the beast, but I'm almost wondering if maybe we could say, okay, here's the goals and sort them by goals, and here's the objectives, and try to force the objectives to be as crisp as possible and as actionable as possible. So they'll lead into and feed the action plan.
And that works great. I mean, the planning commission hopefully can have that discussion tonight to try to kind of crisp that up and provide that, guidance for it. And I'm all about that too. It's nice. I mean, you can have a million goals and objectives, but if you can't do them all, or it doesn't make sense, right? And so if you have a couple of good ideas and can help to move it forward over the next 5 years. So a park and rec plan also, unlike a master plan you're supposed to review every 5 years, but you don't actually have to update. The park and rec plan is set. It's a 5-year plan, and you have to do a new one with the state if you want to stay eligible for funding with grants. So this is it's much more defined, I guess, in my mind than the master plan, because you have to come back to it. Although you can have longer goals and items like that don't necessarily happen in the 5 years. And you can amend it during that time as well if something comes up and you need
So you can add to
it.
your actions in particular.
Yeah. So if something new comes up, a lot of communities will do that. A property or something like that becomes available. You can do a quick amendment, get it submitted to the state so that you can apply for the grant funding for that.
Okay. And I think we have two goals here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maintain and improve parks and provide non-motorized transport options, outdoor recreation opportunities.
Oh, is that how that works? Okay, that you just pointed something out. I didn't realize that. So the light blue one
Yeah.
is the goal and the other ones are the objectives. Okay, got it.
Yes, that is. And we can put a little thing so that's the goal, is the light blue. So I guess looking at that, we have 2 there. Do you think that encompasses everything, or should we add or change any of the goals? Just looking at the light blue.
To me, the first seems clear, maintain and improve what we have. The second feels like we're putting 2 things together. And maybe the second part of that is sort of the point of the whole thing, right? Taking advantage or meeting the express needs of the taxpayers. Any other?
So explain what you just said.
So the first goal being maintain and improve parks and recreational facilities and identify opportunities for new spaces.
I had a question about if this is a 5-year plan and we kind of have a new space that's been identified. I did have a question if that really is private, the property on the that's the right class for that?
Well, by private, we just mean not owned by the township.
Oh, okay. Anyway. I'm thinking, based on comments that we've had tonight, we need to really shore up maintenance and keep what we have so that it can be used appropriately for our citizens. So tell me what your thought was with it and identify opportunities for new spaces.
Well, and that's was either new parks, new properties as they come along are available or are conserved for township involvement on that.
Okay.
So it could be anything. I think if you wanted to, well, that starts with maintain. So I think any of these maintenance items that were mentioned tonight could be added in there. And we could put, I guess I would caution the planning commission to be broad in some of those action items because it is a township board activity. And while, the garbage cans and the cigarette collections and things like that make a lot of sense, they also have unintended consequences related to them as far as, you have to have somebody empty them and things like that. And it kind of grows from there, or people dump in the garbage cans because they're unmonitored. And so it's as simple as it says to, add garbage cans. It does need to be thought through and how that's going to be done and staffing related to that.
Yeah.
And it may be a very simple answer by the township board, but just, to kind of think all the way through that.
Yeah, there were consistent comments through the survey and the public meeting that were about trash receptacles and facilities and things, so.
Yeah, and I think we could put it in the park improvements as an action plan item, and the township board's gonna look at this, they're gonna have a public hearing, and they ultimately get to adopt it, so they may say, adding trash, that's too strong, maybe it's investigate, or something
Yes,
like
yeah.
that.
I was thinking more like investigate the possibilities of,
Yeah.
right?
So,
What can you have out there?
So maintain, I think we can get to that component in that first goal. I agree, Jeff, with kind of that second sentence, maybe in that second goal. So if we had provide non-motorized transportation options and outdoor recreational opportunities. Maybe the second sentence isn't even needed as a goal. That's the whole point of having parks in essence is.
Right, to
taking
take advantage of what you have for everyone's benefit. That's what I was thinking. But it's sort of like we have non-motorized transportation options. Am I reading that right, as trails?
Right. We could also rephrase it and say, provide outdoor recreational opportunities, including non-motorized options
okay, I see
or
where we're
something
going.
like that.
I think that's better. And I would agree. I don't think you need to taking advantage. Everything after taking advantage is really not needed, in my opinion, because isn't that, I think by nature of what we're trying to do, that's going to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Underneath the first goal of maintain and improve parks and recreational facilities. So what we just heard in public comment about the nature preserve, the nature preserve would fall underneath this section, right?
Yeah.
And it feels as though, well, the day park is a premier recreational space in Torch Lake Township. It says it's the premier. Small subtle thing about changing the word "the" to "a," because it implies like everything is secondary to the day park. And that might be true from a budget perspective, but I'm not so sure. And if we've done surveys as to how many people use the day park versus the nature preserve, I don't know the answer to that.
Well, but to your point and Sarah's, that's what the township owns, right? Not.
Township owns a day park, but not the nature preserve.
Right. We manage the nature preserve.
But I guess, but we've given again, not trying to debate, so maybe it's a moot point here, but, given the fact that we've agreed to maintain the nature preserve, we own the park, so we're in with both. We're trying to make them available for the public and make them usable to the public. Not that it came out on the survey, but what if, twice the people use the nature preserve. Would we shift resources more to doing more stuff for the nature preserve, even though we don't own it? I think we probably would.
And I think it's valid to say is a premier recreational space.
Yeah,
I mean, leaves it open.
agreed.
Then my other point was just going to be to mention or should we not mention the day park here? Or I'm sorry, the nature preserve here. I just read through them all and didn't see anything about nature preserve.
Yeah, I think we could add in is that objective to continue to maintain and enhance the Torch Bay Nature
Yep.
Preserve type of thing?
Could there be a way to state it? I think there could be a better way to, I don't have a prescription, but I do use the trails in there, and it needs help.
Need some love?
Yes. And could that be a goal, that we improve the management? I think it could be improved. We could develop a system that could improve the care and.
I would agree with that. Because part of it is, where did that land, how did we get that land? Or how do we agree to start maintaining it? Does anybody know how that came about?
I don't know the history of it. I mean, other than this 94 agreement that was mentioned during public comment.
Land Conservancy.
But I don't know why the township, a lot of times that's what happened. The township does get involved in maintaining property that's within their boundaries with the conservancy if it's a large acreage. They're all a little bit different depending
Right.
on different things and what's required of them.
It's just, the day park and that chunk of land are two of the most, extensive, beautiful spots we have in the township. There's others, obviously based on the inventory, but those certainly come to pretty high priority. And we want to make sure that we're putting resource there to maintain them. Otherwise just don't do anything and let them deteriorate.
So are you suggesting another goal and set of objectives to look at potential enhancement in the management of the nature preserve or something along
Yeah.
those lines? And then,
I would actually love to, talk about this at the board meeting tomorrow night or the November, whenever
Yeah.
it comes forward.
and we could have some objectives around looking at the possibility of forming a committee to help with the management and
Yeah.
any investments, examining investments to be made for facilities, trash, benches, whatever that.
Right.
So that would be an objective under the maintain and improve goal.
No, it would be a new goal specifically related to ways to enhance, or, I don't know, I'm not being very articulate tonight, but
Yeah, I think I have
To be-
approved and enhanced the Torch Bay Nature Preserve, and then an objective would be to either establish or reestablish the Torch Bay Nature Preserve committee.
or probably look at,
Rumor has it there is one.
yeah.
Well, but I'm guessing nobody sits on it, and it does, so
it's not
reestablish or re-energize.
If it was created, it's
Yeah,
never
and-
been.
And to be clear, I'm not necessarily saying it, I don't have a strong feeling whether it needs to be a separate goal or not. I was mostly just concerned that it was not mentioned under any part of it.
Specifically,
Yeah. And like we mentioned the day park. And I just felt that was probably the second most, if not tied for the most important.
I was thinking it might be a goal because we might have some specific action items around
Yeah.
that we could put in.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Which is basically looking at, is there a committee, should it be staffed or,
Right.
do something with it so that we can enhance and have a place to.
Denise, you mentioned that the trails could use some help. is it like maintaining them, where they're located, signage, what kind of items?
Signage, there's, there's trees falling across the
Okay.
pathways and, yeah, just in general. I think there's a big difference between the preserved trail and Antrim County.
What do you mean by that?
Well, in terms of walkability, signage,
Oh, you mean the Antrim County
Creek trails.
Antrim Creek Trails, okay. They're much nicer, meaning,
Yeah.
Yeah.
More attended to.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of like making it its own goal for Torch Bay, I guess, just because it's a little more detailed and although I guess those objectives could just as easily be action items too, if we made it improve, enhance as an objective under the maintain and improve parks and recreational facilities.
So keep it under the same goal, but just like we did with the day park, included an objective
Yeah,
to, whatever we said, enhance and improve. And then we have a couple of action items,
yeah,
examining the committee, funding sources to pay for improvements to trails.
that works.
okay.
On that second one, did you say that you ended up with outdoor recreational opportunities and non-motorized transportation options?
Yeah,
Do we want to do more than just outdoor? Maybe I'm mixing the two things that I read. It talked about indoor pickleball and tennis courts and some indoor activities for the aging community.
yeah, so we could just say provide, indoor and outdoor.
Just don't limit us.
See if the firemen will let us use the engine bay for a pickleball court.
They'll be limited to when that'll happen.
What could possibly go
They'll
wrong?
be like, why we agree to that?
Right.
That noise.
Exactly. Under that first goal, this is probably too technical for this discussion, but the 1, 2, 3, fourth objective, explore opportunities, that seems to go right in the wheelhouse of the other goal.
Sure.
And then we mention in the goal, identify opportunities for new spaces, but we don't have any objective on that. Which I do think is something we should, budgets are limited, of course, but if there are opportunities or,
Yep. And this is where you'd want to put it.
could also seek donations of,
Yeah. Anything else for this page?
and Denise, maybe you're the right one. What, can we say something, we have here reference to the trailhead. I don't know if it's an objective or an action item to look at ways to collaborate with the TART or the, or however we're describing it.
Could
To-
you add it to the third one instead of just saying neighboring communities and, I don't know, what organizations? or
Yeah, one down
they
from
call
there.
themselves?
Oh,
It makes reference. I just wonder if there might be opportunities in a couple of years where we could make investments or seek grants in collaboration with the TART or whoever the trailhead owner is, to make improvements, add community spaces, all the things that we heard about in the survey, right?
Yeah, I think we could add, work with, like Laura mentioned, work with neighboring communities and trailhead owners to provide routes and things like that for that objective. If you're okay combining it all together.
Yep.
And then we can get into the action item and maybe that's where we.
That's where I was going with it, yeah.
Yeah.
Wanted to have an action item on that, so. Other thoughts, comments on the goals and objectives?
Was it the fifth one that you said belongs over on the other one? Develop policies and directives to establish.
No, the one above that.
Okay, what about the fifth one? Is that the other side too?
Yeah,
Construction
Kinda, yeah.
plans? Or both?
okay.
Just from a process perspective, so the idea would be to have this in time for the November board meeting. Because then get their feedback, then if the board agrees to it, then it goes to 30-day notification period. Then we have the hearing, incorporate any feedback from the hearing, and then from there, because we want to get it done in time for, did you say February?
Yeah, February 1st, I have to have Bob hit the submit button with the state.
Okay. And if we don't, then we don't have opportunities to apply for grants next year, correct?
We
Right.
lose a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know that there's that'd be a question for the board. I don't know if TAR's working on anything with the trail that they would need for the April, if they're talking about that or not. That would be to try to get that lined up.
Well, that makes sense. So basically, as we go through this, we don't want to sit here and polish the cannonball, because if we spend too much time, we lose our window. The important thing is get something reasonable in place. We could always come back and amend it later.
Right.
And we can, most importantly, add action items and specifics later.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so then looking at the action plan, we have those couple of items about the Torch Bay Nature Preserve, about the committee, reviewing the amenities that are provided at the nature preserve, enhance the walkability, signage, maintenance, trash removal. Those are all related to Torch Bay. What additional action items do we need? And they don't have to be broken down in park improvements, boat launch, road ends. That's just how your current plan is broken down.
What page are you on now?
This is gonna be, it's labeled page 33 of the current plan, and it just has the table on it. There's nothing interesting really on it.
so looking at the 2011 plan, I see a couple of ideas, both related to the trailhead, I guess, working with TART. And establishment of no non-motorized connections through the township and local recreation. I'm cobbling together a couple of things here. I can. I was proposing a potential action item related to working with TART to improve trails and pursue opportunities to further enhance the new facility. But it's all has to be a bit soft because again, we're just trying to be supportive, right?
Yeah, and I'm kind of thinking if this is particular to the McClima section that we're talking about, I think it would be more appropriate to focus on the trailhead. Are you talking about the building and are we getting to that far along?
No, I wasn't. I was being more general than that.
Oh,
Just
okay,
as this all comes to fruition over the next 5 years,
yeah,
looking at ways that the township can be involved or support or find opportunities to meet some of the
right.
goals that we have, right?
Yeah, so
Nothing-
I was thinking, working with Tarleton property owners to pursue opportunities to enhance the trailhead and facilities, and then whatever that is over the next 5 years, right? Because until we have a plan, and it's not really our plan, but, unless the township takes ownership of it at some time to generate their own plan and go through that, I think that's kind of where we're at. We're collaborating with whatever that looks like.
And it's the trailhead and the trail itself.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what I thought too, mentioning the trail, because to the extent something comes available that the township might want to apply for a grant, for example, that would assist in this.
Okay.
How about, there was confusion on the road ends, or it wasn't clear why people don't use them, and it looked, I couldn't really tell from the chart for sure where they were. Maybe other people also were not aware. It would be cool to identify them and maybe maintain them or make them accessible if they're not accessible today.
Well, and it seems like a while back, there was a budgeting to clean all the road ends out, but that kind of fell apart. or something.
Can you talk into your microphone?
Sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. I have a vague memory of the road ends were going to be cleaned up in the past couple of years or so. And I think that didn't happen. And I was thinking the same thing. I don't know where the road ends are. I think a lot of them probably are overgrown and not that accessible. So,
Yeah. I think there'd be, I know that I've gone out thinking that I knew where one was, and I probably was trespassing. And I went and looked in the water. Ooh, shame on me, but I'm sure probably property owners would maybe appreciate having those lines drawn as well.
So if I identify the road ends, add signage, and enhance accessibility where appropriate? Okay. Which I know road ends are a hot topic, right?
yes.
Especially if you live next to one.
Yes.
Right. See, I think some of the neighboring
Like-
homeowners
And I know
might be
that part
surprised
of
that we.
sorry, part of the thing I think Denise might be referring to is there was some discussion, I think it was at a board meeting, and because the road ends are, I think, county-owned?
It depends.
Okay, I think the ones, yeah, I think several of them are, I'm sorry?
I thought there were some that were owned by the township, but I might be wrong.
There might be one or two. I know that there are some that are, I'm pretty sure, owned by the county. And then it was like, the county doesn't have the budget to maintain them. So who has the budget, who puts the budget in, and who does the maintenance, who makes the improvement, who does the maintenance? And some of them have issues with, like Eagle as an example, getting down the bluff on the protected dune and stuff like that. So it's who takes responsibility to sort through that. There's the boundaries themselves, then it's the ecological things to think through. That was what was discussed at the board meeting, was like, how does that all shake out? So I don't know the answer to it, but I know it's something we can always resurface.
Yeah, and hopefully this action item is vague enough that it's, you're identifying that. So you're going through that process, right? Who owns them? Where are they located? And then what can we do, or what would we want to do depending on funding?
Can you include in there, maybe you're either communicating or sharing that information with the public, making that easily accessible, even if it was just where they're at, to know the coordinates or something might be helpful.
Yes, for
Something.
sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sounds like the first step is to survey them and actually figure out what's
Just-
there and how accessible they may or may
Right.
not be, and
I
is there
think there was some
parking?
surveying done.
Was there?
I think so. I think it was around the same time that Denise is referring to. Whether they covered them all, I think they did. But just so everybody else on the commission is aware, the other thing that came up at a board meeting was basically making some improvements at the end of Creswell Road. I think it's Creswell, because there's some problems with the ramp or whatever that goes down into the water, because it's one of the primary places for fire trucks to refill. So if they have a fire at the south end of the township and they run out of water, instead of having to come all the way someplace else, they can go there, but they got to be able to get the truck down there to bring the water up. So that's why there was some recent discussion. That's obviously a road end. And so it's relatively well taken care of, if for no other reason, that reason. So there's what, 5 or 6 others. So even if we decide to tackle one or several, we don't necessarily have to tackle them all. We can sort through that.
Sounds like a great project for a summer intern, doesn't it?
Yeah. Any other action items that you'd like to add? Does anybody know, in the action plan of the 2011, there was talk about like the play structure at the day park. Is that all new?
That
Do we know if
was,
that
I
happened?
thought it was new.
It looks newer than
Wasn't there a
back in the
big
day.
thing, big community event to rebuild that? And-
Ooh, I don't know.
And that would have been 15 years ago, so it is a stretch on the mind.
Yeah, stretching mine, I know. I have a vague memory of that, but I could be
Okay.
misplacing it.
I can ask and see, because if that did not get done, then we should add that in as an action item as well. So I'll just make note of that. I can check with Bob or somebody at the day park.
As far as activities, for community activities, I don't know. The only thing I can think of is somebody that would coordinate those things. Somebody that's really fun and has great ideas that would coordinate, but that's money. Not
Right.
for money. I don't know how you might say something vague to get
Yeah,
something like that to happen. But maybe that's a committee.
these committees. Yeah, it does, like programming of parks and providing those. It takes a lot more time than just like, hey, why don't we do this? There's a lot of background work that happens and coordination for some of those items. And we, like you said, at the township right now, we don't really have the staff that can do that. So that would take an investment from the township board, but maybe it's more along explore.
Maybe there's organizations within our communities or surrounding
Who?
communities that would like to use our,
Facilities.
yeah.
And I was thinking especially the
So-
day park, again, that actually does have a committee, right?
Right.
That could be
Yeah.
So maybe it's more like seek organizations to program existing facilities.
Yeah.
spoken like a true planning professional.
Okay.
Yeah, because that is a tough one. What activities? It's all over here. People say more community activities, but what is that? And
Yeah.
And really, I mean, when you look at it, it is acquiring more property to provide more facilities,
yes,
right? Like pickleball, like
Right.
you need a spot to put that.
right.
You can't put everything at the day park. or the
So
nature preserve.
investing in those things
Right.
to attract more of those organizations.
Right.
I would also suggest another, similar to what was in here before about property acquisition, just examining opportunities for acquiring or receiving donation of.
Yes. That's a pretty good list, actually, for action items.
On this second one, the last objective, establish a system that keeps township taxpayers informed? Is this a
That's,
computer system or?
no, it's more like it's not MailChimp, it's with the newsletter that like Bob puts out.
Starts with C.
Yeah. The email list.
That's a cost.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
But somebody has to write that, so.
Right.
Okay. Well, hopefully we also include that on our website too.
Yes.
This is really a question from lack of knowledge, so I apologize if I'm touching the third rail here. But is there any consideration, or could there be consideration of expanding the day park committee to be more of a recreation, more holistic for some of these?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Basically,
I
fold all of these kind of under one group. Is that what you mean?
yes.
Gotcha.
I
As
mean, I
opposed
think
to
that
maybe it
makes sense. Typically, yes, there is one group that kind of oversees all of the parks, and it's a recreational committee. And it could be the day park or a morph of the day park. I don't know why that's specific, other than that's the only township park.
Right.
But from an outsider, when I first started and they were talking about the day park committee, I'm like, only the day park, like in my mind, like that's only moving that one item forward.
Right.
Not all recreational opportunities. So I think that, yes, I don't know if that's kind of a lightning rod into a situation, but
That's why I say I don't know either. I apologize in advance, but I wouldn't mind listing it as a sort of a soft action item,
Yeah.
examine
yeah.
or maybe
That's a
there's a
good idea.
recreation committee overall, because we've got quite a few ideas here, but
Yeah.
who's going to keep all this moving forward?
I think that's a really good idea. The worst is that lightning strikes, and we'll deal with it when the time comes.
Yeah, right.
Constant contact.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I like that. That's a good.
Isn't there there's like a boat launch right on the north end of Torch Lake, isn't there?
Yeah.
Right there.
Owned by the DNR.
Yeah, that's by the DNR. Okay,
Mhm.
thanks.
The
Okay.
question is, where is this northwest? Oh, East Torch Lake Drive, undeveloped site. Oh, northwest Torch Lake Drive boat ramp.
Yeah. There's is that Northwest Torch? Let me look at a map now.
Would that be like around Barnes Road?
Yeah. Where it curves, there's a little
Okay,
boat launch. That's what I was going to say. Is that Northwest Torch right there?
well, that's
Yeah,
probably
it is
west.
Northwest Torch.
Okay,
Yeah, it's kind of down by,
yeah, on the backside of Agaming there.
yeah,
Okay, I didn't realize it was.
okay. So we have quite a few action items in here and some edits. Would the planning commission to move this forward? What if I made the edits, send it out? You can tell me if I heard you, and then if there's any discussion needed, we'd have a special meeting to talk about it. If everybody says that's what we talked about, thumbs up, send it to the board. Are you comfortable with that? We wouldn't discuss it, but independently, you can all vet
So-
my work.
So you'll send it out, we'll look at it. We're going to have a meeting of this commission before the board meeting to submit this, right?
There is a meeting the day before, yeah.
Okay, so, but we should come into that meeting having pretty well agreed on this. We can tweak it in that meeting. If we don't want that meeting to be the first time we rehash some of this, because we don't have much time.
So
Right.
if we decide tonight that we're going to move forward, we're going to hand it off to the board with edits as discussed, and then we're going to review it again at that meeting, we'd have the opportunity to pull it if we think there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean, it will already be in the board packet for their consideration when we come to our meeting in November. So
Right.
we could move our meeting up a week so that you can have your time to review it and make a final decision. And
What happens if we submit it, but then we meet the day before and change our mind? Can't we-
right,
we
you can pull it off
we
the
could pull it.
agenda.
We could
That's what I meant. We could always
always
pull
pull
it,
it.
but yes, we'd actually be approving the sort of the
Right.
final at that.
We'd go into it assuming it was going to be final. And if there's any material changes, assuming I'm at that meeting, I can also comment on the board, to the board the next day.
And I'll be at the meeting in November
Yeah.
for the board. So,
Okay.
and I can say, we changed this, this, and this, if need be. So, okay, so we'll plan on coming back at the November 17th meeting then to finalize. I'm still gonna send it out in the next week or two, and then you can tell me if I
Thank you,
miss the mark.
thank you.
Yeah, that'd be
That would be-
great.
Yeah.
But I'm inclined to have a motion or something here that we're moving it forward to the board
Okay,
pending final review of changes, just so that we're clear on the
yeah,
process. Is that,
that works for me.
everybody comfortable with that? Well, I guess we'll see in a minute. I'm going to do it. So I'll make a motion to favorably submit, is that what you're saying?
Sure.
The proposed recreation plan for approval by the Township Board at their upcoming November meeting, subject to final edits as discussed in tonight's meeting.
Perfect.
Second,
I'll second it.
any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next is discussion of the survey and the open house summary.
Yeah, so I mean, this is in your packet. This will also be included in the master plan as a chapter in the document. So I guess essentially you could look at this as a additional chapter for your master plan that you're kind of reviewing. That'll go into the complete document. You'll get to see it as a whole for that document as well. So I don't know if there was anything interesting that you saw in the survey summary or anything you want to make sure that I include or that maybe we need to have further discussion on when we're talking about action plans and the master plan, anything like that.
I noticed that one question is repeated. It doesn't have the right one. This one, page, doesn't have page numbers on it, but it's 64 when I open our packet.
Okay. Page 64.
Density question.
So it's repeated.
Yes, so there's a different question that belongs there. About smaller square footage housing.
I have to say I was pleased to see that seems like a lot of responses, 450.
Oh,
I mean, that's a third of the township, right?
yeah, that's a very good turnout for communities, for a community of this size in general, percentage wise.
There was one question, no, I can't find it. It's the one with where you live now and 10 years from now, where did you see yourself? Some of the answers made me think, I don't know that people understood
what each of those was.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was the same thing I was going to, and I think you highlighted it too. There was very clear, we do not want denser housing, but we want to live in townhouses 10 years from now.
Yeah,
That
that
was the,
and, well, it was like 48% of people live in a manufactured mobile home. I don't, it was some number that I was like, that doesn't seem right.
and again, clearer that natural features and recreation are of high value, and keeping the township in a natural and rural setting is highly valued by the residents.
Yeah. Was that 99, 43%? I don't think people understood.
what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
We did have maybe a slight overrepresentation of people who own property on the water.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Which was interesting. When I looked at it, I opened it, and there might have been 60 people that had taken it, and there were like 2 that were not waterfront. And I was like, oh, boy. But we have a lot, and, there's both sides of the township have waterfront on them. That's where all the density is, so there are more people that live there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was that was a new experience for me.
Right.
I did get to the was it the last question for the airport?
Mhm.
And I was like, dang, I felt like we should have asked more.
Yeah,
Because it didn't really give us a whole lot.
yeah.
It seems everyone's comfortable with housing there, but other things are less.
Desirable.
It seems like there were I don't know if it was just a few comments, but there was things about, no permanent fuel storage that came up. I guess that was probably the only thing I really remember that being specific. But
Yes. I assumed through reading this that probably you guys are so cool and like to save time that AI helped review a lot of the data that was put in there. But I was very impressed with how it read. Because, sometimes it's really crappy when AI does it. Really obvious, and I thought it read really well.
Yeah, the open-ended questions, we usually plug them in and say, give us some points, and somebody can expand upon them and, help that to boil it down, especially when you get 400 comments. What are the common themes
Right.
that you're dealing with here? Yeah, well, thank you.
I agree, it does read very well. And so does the rec plan.
Mhm.
Did you write all that, Sarah, or AI did it? Or you pulled it from the?
AI doesn't write the text for the plan. I have employees that help write it.
Yeah.
They do the background and the research for it. Then usually I come back in and plug in some local knowledge. And then you guys fill in the rest of the gaps for me.
I thought it was really good, and I felt like it made it a lot easier to see what those action items should be versus the last one. Like
Yep.
way easier.
Yep. And maybe to that point, take it a step further. And it would be interesting after we get the draft, just to, and there were some good examples tonight of people pulling out some kind of unnecessary words. Because it's easy when you're writing a document like that for anybody. I certainly would do it if I were doing it, to just try to over explain something. And it's like, it'd almost be interesting to take it and run it through an AI thing and just say, eliminate unnecessary words and just highlight them as you're going and see if it streamlines it a little bit, but not deteriorate the meaning at all. Because the shorter and more concise it is, the more people will read it.
A summary right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Any other comments, thoughts, additions? I mean, it all seems pretty factual. I think we all agree it's well-written and
Okay.
put together. I wonder how we're going to engage in traffic calming and slowing people down. I
Yeah.
think we share that 88, too many people speed there, but that's sort of selfish.
So next steps in the master plan is, I think we may have one chapter that you've not reviewed yet. I just can't remember exactly that part. And then we will be talking about existing land use, future land use, and get into the implementation portion of the master plan. So we'll probably do that at the November meeting, since we're going to have one to kind of finalize this park and rec plan. And then probably take December off, because you're getting close into Christmas, and get back into it in January. But we can have a December meeting.
Subtle note.
Although it might, because we moved it up a week, didn't we? Oh, yeah, so there's more time, because usually we run into it, because we used to be on the fourth Monday or the third Monday.
Oh, right, yeah.
Now,
That'll be,
so
it's like the
anyways,
middle of the
so
month
looking
this,
at
for
you,
December.
He's not gonna be here.
But, yeah, so that would be my plan, to get some input. Get the input on those chapters, and then hopefully then be able to get kind of a full draft for your review to look at. And then we can figure out how to go from there. If we get it out to 63 day and then have some sort of an open house to get input, or if we need more input on something, well, once we have a full draft and can look at it and read, we can evaluate next steps, I think.
Okay.
So.
And just procedurally, this is probably a good opportunity to start to go back and read through what you've already shared with us. And if
Yeah.
there are
I
specific changes
Yeah, what I can do is I can send out any of the chapters you've already reviewed and provided edits for, we've laid out into the document. So I can get that into a PDF so you can read it kind of as it's going to look and all of that. And then we can plug in these other chapters that we're going to talk about in November, because we're kind of at the end anyways. So I will look and see next week. I will send out kind of what we have all together for master plan. And that way you have the most up to date to review and provide any edits.
Okay, that's great. Because I feel we've looked at the chapters
Yeah.
but it's hard to keep it all
Yep.
in your head at once. So go back and read through. All right, any other master plan business? Seeing none, let's move on to new business. I don't think we have new business.
Nope.
Anyone? No new business. Ongoing reports. Zoning administrator, Sarah.
You know what? I did not put in a copy of my written report that went to the board. Let me pull it up here really quick, and I can just give you a quick overview of it. So we are finishing up with a couple of enforcement items, mostly having to do with people living in campers on vacant property. For enforcement on that, we have one that's been kind of in court for the last couple of years. They actually have a permit to build a home now and can live there for a year in a camper, because we allow for temporary dwellings during construction. So that one is resolved at least for a year during construction. As far as violations go, and follow up on that.
So the person was in there for 2 years, tied up in court, and now they're going to build a house and get to live there another year.
Right.
Interesting.
We were supposed to go to mediation tomorrow, but they pulled all their permits for compliance. But yeah, that has been ongoing, because the court ordered them to remove it, or you can live in a camper for 30 days with a permit. So the court ordered compliance with that portion. They weren't complying. So we went back in front of the judge and said, help us enforce. And we've done that a couple of different times. So it's It's one of those things. Land use permits, we're up to 57 for the year, in the township. Last year at this time, we were up to 37. So it's been a busy year for land use permits, for that. And I guess that's all for now. We haven't had a ZBA. We're gonna have one next month, just for organization. And I think that's it. Any questions? I feel like I'm missing something, but
Okay, no
Is there
questions?
any changes to this commission? Is the time coming up?
there is on the maybe on the agenda for tomorrow. There might be
There is.
some changes. I know Lori's position was up. I don't know what the status is of it though.
Okay.
For that. Yeah, ZBA and planning, well, reappointments basically for all of our boards happen because November is kind of the first meeting of the year. So,
Okay.
Okay, yeah, ZBA report, there hasn't been one, so nothing to report. Andy, anything from the board?
Yeah,
talked about a lot of
last board meeting there, you may have heard there's 2 new flock cameras, which are kind of the license plate reader cameras that are going to be installed on the US 31 M88 intersection there. They're doing some work on the day park, new roof on the pavilion, and new steel doors for the bathroom. There was a new EMT hired, and considering doing the research on a potential trash day for early next year, trash day for Torch Lake. And then tomorrow, there is a new planning commission member that's being nominated. Just some administrative things, a new ZBA person, and potentially a speed study. We'll be considering a speed study on Northwest Torch Lake Drive. And I also, for the life of me, cannot understand how the speed can be what it is going through Eastport there. I just don't. It is just a matter of time before something happens bad there. The traffic flies. And as we do the things with the TART trail and stuff, it's got to be addressed because that's a disaster.
In both directions it flies. I mean, 31 and people turning 88 and it's just,
It's a scary intersection.
always has been.
That's it.
Great, thank you. Is there any further public comment on anything discussed this evening? Hearing none. Concerns of the commission? I don't have a concern, but I'm really happy that we have the recreation plan in the works and moving forward and finally getting the master plan going. So just a general comment, I guess, but feels like progress.
It does.
Now it's starting to feel real, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Can smell it.
Yeah.
So. Anybody else have anything they want to raise? Okay, can we have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second,
I'll second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Opposed? 8:20.